And thank you for joining us for the October 19th Board of Selectmen's meeting. If everybody would please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have a 6 o'clock appointment with Clint and Owen regarding the transfer station project, so I will turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Actually, I have a handout so you can kind of follow along with me if I can.
Yep, go right ahead.
Write a handout. Hopefully I brought enough. Nancy already has it,
Yeah,
so.
I have one copy.
Thank you.
Actually, I have this.
All right.
Everybody gets one tonight.
There's a test afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, I hope not. Good evening. I think what our primary goal here tonight is just to go over the bids that we got in for the transfer station project and what we've done since then to try to come up with a project that we have the money for. So without further ado, I'll start. We actually received, and I was looking for my notes on this, I believe we received thing. We received 5 bids. Iron Man Fabrication, Robert Lozier, Foglio Inc., Seth McCoy's Trucking and Excavating, and Dearborn Construction. The prices range from a low of $100,000 even to a high of $150,815. So what we did was we went through each of the bids looking at who they carried for subs and equipment and try to get a sense that they were consistent with what we asked for in the bids. And then after we went through them and decided that everybody was responsible, with the exception of one, Marathon, and I didn't even put them in here, the company that provides compactors just submitted a bid for the compactor. And I think they were just providing it for general information to us. It wasn't necessarily a formal bid, but obviously we had to formally reject that one. So after we met Iron Man Fabrication, we invited them in with a list of questions to sit down and chat with them for a few minutes about their bid, basically making sure we understand who they were carrying for subs in their bids. Asked them some questions to get a sense that, or some comfort level that they were responsive to our bid. And Lucas, who is here with us, and I'm afraid to pronounce your last name again, Bobian, was here tonight from Iron Man, and he's the person that we interviewed. It was me, Clint, and Nancy sat down with him. And his bid, he did cover all components of his bid, including the steel, the concrete work. He had carried John Thibodeau for concrete, Scott's Fencing, F.R. Carroll for paving, Owen Excavation out of Leamington for his excavation work, and then he had a bunch of the electrical work and everything else was part of it himself. Then what we did is, of course, I think we were still a little over our budget, so we were looking at some options. And one option we thought, and Clint actually did a lot of the homework on this, was to see if the town could buy some of the materials directly, buy the concrete directly from F.R. Carroll and save a little bit, buy the steel directly from the steel supplier, buy the drainage piping directly from the supplier for that. And Clint contacted all those folks and got quotes out of them. And as it turns out, we are able to save a little bit, and depending on whether we use winter concrete or not, there's only about a $360 difference. We get the price down to about $83,000 from $100,000, and I'll sort of explain how we got to that. The sheet I handed out to you includes at the top, includes the original bid information, and those are all of the pay items we had in the bids, and that adds up to the $100,000 that Iron Man Fabrication provided. Then we deducted out his rebar cost that he carried in it. We asked him to provide us with that information. We deducted out his cost of concrete, the pavement cost. He had carried some Jersey barriers in there for traffic control. We deducted out his compactor, variable frequency drive, it's the controller, and then the freight costs. And we deducted out the hopper and compactor steel and the drainage piping and the drainage structure that goes in. So that was worth $58,500. So when you take all those out, his bid was $41,500. So Clint went out and got prices for all of those items from various suppliers if the town bought them direct. And what we found out was, yes, there was some savings, with the exception of one, which was interesting. The rebar, we went to M.R.S.A Steel, who gave us a price of $5,030 for the rebar, and Lucas's price was $3,500. He used a different supplier for the rebar, so we're going to have him, we're going to keep the rebar in his contract and have him provide the rebar. The hopper steel, we saved a few $1,000s on that if the town buys that directly, and basically what we did was we took his quantities and materials lists, and I'll talk about that more in a minute, and we gave them to our suppliers and said, give us a price on these items. And they did, and like I said, in some cases we got, in all cases except one, we got a lower amount. One of the big areas we saved quite a bit of money in was Atlantic buying a reconditioned compactor. Geez, I don't know, a couple of years ago, or you were going to actually use a reconditioned one. And when we put this one, when we went forward with the bid, the one that we had hoped to buy was no longer available, so everybody had to bid on a new one. But Clint was able to find another reconditioned one. It's from Atlantic Recycling, who actually had come to our pre-bid. They found us one that will suit the needs, and that price was $89.95, which includes shipping. For that, I think it was $1,000 shipping. Then we have to add in a variable frequency drive. We have single-phase power coming into the site, and they used to call it, there's two types, variable frequency drives, an electronic box that takes single phase, fakes it into thinking it's three-phase, which you already have one at the other compactor down there, so that it runs the machine, similar to the setup you have down there now. And Ironman will need to provide that too, so he will actually provide the VFD drive, so that will be part of his contract. And then some concrete blocks. Frank Carroll, instead of Jersey barriers, which are those highway barriers, Frank makes these, I think it's from leftover concrete that comes back to the plant, but they make these blocks. Clint contacted him, and he was willing to sell them to us at a much lower cost than what a Jersey barrier would cost us. And those will block off the construction area. Then after construction, Clint's going to use them for, what else are you going to use those for?
Well, actually, we're going to use them for dividers. We're going to put some around the wood pile down back.
So they will be used in the full facility afterwards. Then what we did was we looked at we got a price from Frank Carroll for the 4,000 PSI concrete that goes into the slabs, the 3,000 that goes into the walls. And Frank's cost was quite a bit lower than what Ironman was able to get. I think your cost was up almost $100 a ton, and our cost was $80 to $85, depending on whether it was winter concrete or not. So that was a pretty substantial savings, and that's Frank selling it directly to the town. Paving, we won't be able to pave this year, obviously, because by the time they get the wall up and everything in place, it'll be probably after Thanksgiving, too late to pave because of temperatures. I had to make a guess at what paving might be next year. I mean, the town would pave it under their COG contract. And Nancy, when do you go back out for those? Do you go back out for a paving contract each year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
COG will be going out probably in the spring.
Yeah. So, and what is the price right now? Do you remember what per ton? It's
I
less than
don't know.
100,
Yeah.
but so I sort of erred on the side of caution and carried $100 a ton just in case. And so that number could actually go lower depending on the price we get next year. And then the drainage piping and structure would come from Jeunesse Concrete. We got a price of $5,401.50. So if you take if you deduct out, you take the 100,000, you deduct out 58,500, you get $41,500. Then you add back in the other things the town will buy. That comes up to $82,279.10. And then if you factored in winter concrete, which if the temperature, when we place the concrete, if the temperature drops low enough, they heat the water that goes into concrete, so they upcharge us for that. And it added about $360 to that cost. And that would be $82,849.10. My hunch is we're going to be in the winter concrete conditions. I just don't really think we'll get around that. So that would be the revised price. I always, just a matter of practice, I put in a contingency, the contract. That's just me doing that as a matter of practice. But it looks to me like we're going to be around $83,000 for the project. So it's about 17 less. And I had actually took a look at this, the price, and where that $17,000 comes from is there's a $5,500 difference in the price of the compactor between the town buying it and Ironman. There's a $2,900 difference in the steel that he's going to build the hopper and the frame out of if we buy it as opposed to Ironman buys it. And then in the concrete price, there was almost a $6,000 difference in price there. And then in paving, Ironman carried $6,500, which was almost $150 a ton, I think is what they carried for price in it. I'm going to guess that the town probably can do better than that, hopefully no more than $100 a ton. So there was almost $2,200 difference in price there. And then the last one was the drainage products. There's a dry well and a catch basin and a piece of pipe that goes down underneath the wall. And Janess gave a price to Clint that was about $600 less than what Ironman was able to get. So then one discussion we had with him was, is if the town, my concern was, is if the town buys the materials, and let's say he needed more steel or he needed more concrete. His original estimate may have been incorrect. Maybe it's an extra 10 yards or 20 yards of concrete. Now would the town have to pay that difference in concrete, because now you're taking ownership of the materials and those quantities. What we agreed with Lucas is, and we'd write this in the contract, that any quantities of materials over and above what was in his estimate, he would be responsible for. So it kind of shifts the risk back onto him, similar to how the bid was, similar to risk he would assume in the original bid. And that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, repeat that again. He's going to assume the risk if the cost is more?
Well, let's say it's the quantity of concrete. There's about I think it's about 110 yards, 114 yards of concrete that's going to go into the walls and the slab. If it turns out we have 125 yards of concrete that needs to go in it, that's roughly 10 yards more than what his bid included. He would be responsible for that.
What if it's 10 yards less?
Well, we do pretty well.
Well, why shouldn't he get the money then if he's willing to risk the other?
Yeah, I mean, and that's I'm okay.
I mean,
Risk and reward. That's if you folks are agreeable to that, that's okay. You could do that.
Well, we had budgeted, we have available 74.5 roughly to
Okay.
do the project. And that's still putting us over by about $8,300 where we need to be.
well, there's 4,300 in paving you can't do this year.
Yeah,
So,
next year's budget, maybe.
so that puts us
Takes
at,
another 5,000 off.
that still gives us 4,000 that we
Yeah.
need to.
All of the cement blocks and stuff aren't really, they're gonna ultimately end up as transfer station stuff, so I'm not sure that should be charged to this capital deal, because we're buying them, yes, to control traffic while we're doing this, but after that, they're gonna be, they have another use, so. I
right.
mean, there's some of this that I think that we get,
So that's still 2750 that we're short. Nancy, any suggestions? It'll be about 2750 short.
Yeah, I got 27.9, well, why did I come up with 27.99? Maybe I did the math wrong. Is it 74.5 is what the budget, is what you have budgeted?
Yep, 74, 5, 16, and 30 cents if you really want to
we
get
have
specific.
55, we raised at town, 55 at town meeting? Or 60, 55, and then we had 22, something, right?
Yep.
You can always have a bake sale.
A bake sale?
No, I think you gotta look at, there's other capital money that's been allocated at the transfer station, or at least reserved, right? Over the years for drainage and all that stuff that
I don't know what's left in that account.
we consumed, but I gotta believe that it'll cover the 3,000 that
Yeah,
we
I
shot.
would say so.
I mean, we're to a point where we either need to do this or we don't. I don't think, there's been a lot of work that's put into it. We have, Ironman that's definitely willing to work with the town so that we can make this happen. We know that we're going to see a cost savings in the long run once this is in with our hauling cost and whatnot. So I think it's definitely within the best interest of the town and our finances to make sure that this happens. We just
I agree.
need to get to that point where, all right, how do we make sure our i's are dotted, our t's are crossed, and finally get this project started and done?
It's been on the table for too long.
Yeah.
Go.
So if you feel that we can find the money, Clint, you think we've got $3,000 in there that you can?
I think so. I know, like in the concrete, I know that we've, when Carol figured it, as to his figures, what was it, probably almost 15 yards of concrete too much. But Frank said, just leave it in there, and he figured it that way. But what he didn't have is how the wall is actually gonna taper. There's yardage in there that we're not gonna need. So there's some money there. I think all through this is gonna be a little bit of money to save here and there.
Okay.
Well, are we actually saving that then if we go with Selectman Woodsum's idea of the reward aspect? If we use less than, I guess we'll have to make a
So that's
decision
the
on
decision
that.
we make, but I just think it's kind of odd that we would penalize somebody for one hand and not reward them for another.
What reward would have, if we had got the contract without negotiating, right? The reward would have been his had he been able to do it with less things. So I think it's at least reasonable to consider that there's a little give and take there. If he's going to stand up and say the overage I'll take, the underage I think we ought to, work that, whether that's some sort of a split or 100% to the contract or whatever. I mean, I think that can be worked out in the language of the contract. But the fact of the matter is, I think there's some opportunity for us to look at it where it doesn't put in everything that he estimated, and that benefits both of us, right? Ultimately.
Yeah, making a bid, I mean, you're making a bid, and you want to win the bid, so you want to go low, but at the same time, you're making a bid with the idea of making a little money too. So you don't want to put yourself in the hole right from the start. So.
You mean you want to get some profit out of this, Lucas?
If it helps, really the only item where that would probably happen is in the concrete, because the steel, when we buy the steel's here and it's ours.
Yeah.
When we buy the concrete blocks, they're here, the compactor, it's here. So the only place that I see that might come into play would be on the concrete, and we can, he gave me what he carried for yards in the bid. if this board would like to, I can write that into the contract and say that, you know, if it runs over, he's responsible. If it runs under, then the town could, whatever you decide to do with that.
Any other questions or discussion?
I'd actually like to have the figures a little more precise than I think we get the 3,000 or I think we get the 25. You know, I'd like to say, yes, we have it. And if the money's in that account and it's there that it can be used, I think we ought to use it, rather than just kind of try, well, I think I can, you know. I don't think we're
Well, I
running the
mean-
town like a little train here that's
No,
going
but I
up the
mean,
hill, so.
ultimately between Clint, who's the manager of that budget, and Nancy, who's town administrator, we need to work to say this is a number that, between what we have in the capital account and what we've got for available funds for repair, maintenance, or whatever in the transfer station to make that difference.
And we'll know that figure within the next day anyway, won't we?
I mean, ultimately, you're gonna get together so that we get a contract to work out, and there's a bottom line number to that, and the funding sources will be identified.
Nice job here, I think.
Yeah.
This is good work done.
So I had put this on the agenda that under appointments, we would discuss and vote on the project all at 6 o'clock so that we didn't have to have Owen and Lucas and Clint sit around until 7, 8, 9 o'clock till we got around to doing that. So I would say at this point, in order to move forward, we need to draft up a contract. We need to get Nancy and Clint to pull out that pool of money that we're, have the shortage here, work out the contract with Lucas, and then we would be ready to move forward. So is the board agreeable to that?
Yep.
Could I have that in a motion?
I'm agreeable to move on to just say, you know, write the contract and go ahead without bringing this back to the board again if they find the funds.
Okay, so is that your motion?
My motion is to approve the plan as presented, providing sufficient funds can be demonstratively shown that we have that can be used to this project. And then we go forward with the project.
Was there a second to that?
There's a second, and you're saying there that with those caveats in place, that Nancy will be able to make the final decision, it won't have to come back to this board.
That's correct, I'll add that into that motion.
Before you vote, just so I'm clear, because I write this contract, this penalty versus reward thing, is that something the board wants to include in there? I mean, it really centers around the amount of concrete that goes into it. I just wasn't sure how we left that.
Okay. I think the consensus of the board is that we were willing to work with
Okay.
with that, so if you want to just kind of include that in your,
Yeah, it's gonna go based on the actual
It's going to be
cost.
based
Yeah.
upon the actual quantity
Right.
and as compared to his original bid amount. If he runs over, it's his.
But at the price that we're paying for the concrete.
That's correct.
okay. So is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
So
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lucas, thank you very much for working with us. Okay. All right. All right, yeah, we tried.
Thank you all very much again.
Thanks. Okay, moving on, hearing a delegation. Okay. And we have Rep. Joe Wagner with us again this evening. Joe, did you have anything you wanted to add in this evening? Great.
First up, word back from the DEA that on that Take Back program that they had one Saturday for prescription drugs, 28.2 pounds of pills were dropped off at the Hannaford here in Waterboro. So successful it was statewide and also regionally that they intend to do another one in the upcoming future. Had a brief conversation with Frank Sherburne yesterday, and with the additional federal monies, indeed, as the board was asking, the intent is to bank that for the subsequent fiscal year. And also was speaking with Kate Dufour from the Maine Municipal Association, asking for an update on the transfer of roads, how that work group is going and what's being discussed there. She essentially told me that fix and swap, which is more like fix and here it is, that's pretty much off the table now. A counter-proposal by the municipal reps on that work group are now looking into something that they're calling switch and share. This is great.
How about switch and bait?
Yeah, this is bait and switch, yeah.
Well, fortunately enough, we've got Kate Dufour chairing this.
This is just share with,
Caveat emptor is, I think, her
this is share with 90% on the town and 10% on the state.
What they're saying is essentially
Smoke and mirrors.
that the maintenance itself of the roadways, the state still would maintain, but in terms of plowing and such, that may be more of a municipal responsibility, but with the money coming from the state to do that.
Wait a minute.
Is that like the 55% on the schools that they're going to fund?
That was, something came up
Checks
in
in
the
the mail.
conversation yesterday about the state's promises.
So how
It's
does
still
this
being-
change anything?
Still in the works right now in terms of counter-proposal. Mainly what K24 and company are trying to do is see how much negotiation room there is for getting something substantial in terms of sufficient funds to maintain the roads. There's a subsequent meeting coming up on the 9th of November, where more of this will be discussed, played out,
Is that in Augusta?
up in Augusta, at their
Yeah,
place up there.
I mean, my put would be, is if the state is truly going to have this mission to turn them over, then, this fix and switch that was a pipe dream in my opinion, but, if they truly address it through the block grant or the URIP or whatever we call it today, right? In the amount of miles, because we weren't going to get hurt too bad as compared to some other municipalities,
Yeah.
right? Then you got something to say, okay, if we're going to get some compensation back for maintenance, right? That's one thing, but, and then you can identify that for those roads, but, because I truly think that we can maintain them cheaper than the state can, but that's another story. But,
So
Yeah,
they
that
got,
was part of the aspect.
they're gonna include that in the revenue sharing?
yeah,
Include that in
what revenue sharing?
Yeah, what revenue sharing?
and I'm
That's gonna
looking
be
into
a-
that
that's
as to
gonna
where
be
it's
a-
going to be paid. Check on
That's
that
going
with
to be an item that you're going to forget. There will no longer be a revenue sharing in anybody's discussion.
Yeah, that's the revenue switch I think they're talking about.
Well, that's what we got good.
I'm a big supporter of music and art and plays and stuff like that. Now, is it Emily Kane from Orono?
Yes.
Has a beautiful voice. You must have heard her sing. Now, do they have a comedy club up here?
From time to time,
Well, they should have a good one.
in some of the committees, we do have our moments. That's what I've got.
All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Correspondence, we didn't have any this week. Reports, town administrators report.
I have a couple of things. The rest of mine is included underneath the new business and old business. The fence for around the generator and the HVAC unit has been delivered. And Dig Safe will be here Friday. As soon as they're done, they will start installing it. And I got the report today on, Tom did for the Mass Camp Road, for the culvert replacement, and from both the Army Corps of Engineers, and it looks like the permit's going to be issued within a week or two.
Wonderful. We haven't heard anything yet from FEMA, though.
No.
What's the status of Old Alfred Road, Hemlock and Oak?
The permit, the check will be ready tomorrow, and Fred is going to pick up the check and hand deliver it for the permit down in Scarborough.
So has the permit been approved?
Yes, they only need to, they was waiting for the permit fee.
So work can start.
As soon as we get the permit in hand. I think everything is all ready to go. There has been, a thing that has been come up about the trees out back here. We have a company that is out there on a neighbor's property trimming some trees, and we have some pines out there that really need to be replaced or removed. They got some damage, and I think there's even a couple of them that's even kind of off on the, kind of straddling the property line, and there's some dead wood out there, and they would chip the dead wood, and the pines, we would get a little money for. And while they're out there doing it now, they are willing to do it, rather than having to come back if we need them.
Is the board agreeable to just letting Nancy handle that? If we have some diseased trees, dead trees that could come down, we've already had that issue once before. Is everybody agreeable to just letting Nancy handle that?
I'm
What's the
agreeable as long
line?
as we don't end up with the same mess as we had before. So, and I think Nancy knows my feelings.
Yep, Gordon?
Oh, I'm agreeable. I think that, I actually viewed the site this morning and spoke with, I guess Paul is here now, I spoke with him and Mr. Woodson, about the issue and saw, firsthand the trees that they were discussing. And I think, in my opinion, there's a few of those that are going to come down very shortly. And
By Mother Nature?
Mother Nature would take them, and once they get knocked down, and then we have the other issue, if they, depending on which way they fall, now let's assume the worst case scenario, they fall on the other party's property, then we'd be subject to having to pay to have those removed. And it would, at that point, it would cost us money versus now to take those out while there's equipment already in there. The town is in a position that we might realize a few bucks. I don't think we're going to get a substantial amount that's going to have a significant impact, on the budget overall. But it just stands to reason that if we can make money versus paying out, I think that's a kind of a win-win situation.
John, David?
Well, I thought you said for a little money, okay? So I thought we're paying out.
Oh, no.
Oh, no,
Okay,
no,
I'm sorry. No, I can go for it.
I think that's all set for you to take care of.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, the rest of it's further on.
Okay. All right, Selectmen's report? Selectmen with anything to report? Okay, committee reports, R.S.U. 57 tonight. We have Mary Ross here. And we also got something from Lisa Faith.
Yeah, I
who-
didn't know if you wanted me to read that or not. 'Cause she
If
said
you
she
want to
was
hit the
gonna-
highlights, that would be great.
Oh, there's not highlights with Lisa. Let's see. She's working the policy committee. I'll tell you, she's done a phenomenal job with our policy book. So right now, it's just in a review state. She's got everything now on a rotating 3 years. We've gone through everything in the book. So now it's just updating every year. We had to go through a lot and change, like, from SAD 57 to R.S.U. 57, so like, that's just all housekeeping. So that's what we're going through right now. We're going through all of like the financial, that's what they're working on now, financial sections. And it says there are over 280 R.S.U. 57 policy and procedures which give guidance to employees of the district to try to maintain consistency. I know that the town provides a link from the community resources heading of its website to the district's website, and we appreciate that very much. She wanted me to make a note on that. Public relations, we're really trying to work on this committee. Just everything that we've gone through in the past with the budget, we're trying to get anything out there, to get as much information out there as we can for any of that's going on. One idea that they came up with is we would really appreciate help from the town is if they could have someone who doesn't have children in the school who would be interested in sitting on that committee, because the only ones that are sitting currently on the committee are just our board members. But we're trying to find other community members to sit on there, because most of what we're talking about is going home with kids, people that have kids in the school, and we're trying to get to people who don't, to try to get more ideas from them on how we can get information out to them. Which goes into the line of, she asked, again, you've got this all to read, but the trifolds like we did the last time at the voting, we're just looking to get permission again to see if we could put that up, because that asked for like emails for people who didn't have children in the district. If they wanted information from the district, we could get emails. And she said that last year that it really wasn't in a good place, but if we could do that, we'd like to try to get it more open so everybody could see that.
And she can just work with Nancy on that.
So just have her, she asked me if, okay.
Yep.
And then it says, finally, hopefully you all received the superintendent's first newsletter that went out recently. This is a quarterly publication that goes out to all residents, and it sort of scratches the surface of what's going on in the district so that people can receive accurate information. We can't adequately cover a lot of topics in the small space provided, but we're trying to at least keep people somewhat informed. As you know, we've used this format in the past to give details on the budget, and I'm sure we'll continue with that process. If you have any suggestions or information you'd like to see on those mailings, just please let her know. And she just goes on to say that this is her overview, but that's kind of an overview. I mean, there's more information in there because Lisa's pretty thorough. We like Lisa. Heather couldn't be here because she's running her children around. She sits on transportation, and currently right now they're reviewing the handbook. We're almost done with it, finally, to have it in place to go into effect. There haven't been many variances this year because they've combined a lot of stops to try to save more money. They did have one denial, but the parents were fine with it. She also sits on the curriculum, and she said that they just had a meeting Monday. And she said plans for this year, they stated to do standards work, the focus on the standards, to continue with that. They did a big review of the risk timelines. I guess there was a lot of confusion about the middle school is completely in our standards-based program, and their scoring is 1 to 4. All the elementaries score 1 to 4. Everybody thought the high school would. There was a big controversy about that because parents are afraid that it won't, because of college issues, and it won't convert. But there's a system that we have that's part of this risk program that converts the risk 1, 2, 3, 4 over to actual grades and grade point averages that will go to schools. But the principal said that they're not looking at that for a few years. Heather was calling me on her cell phone, so she didn't have her notes in front of her, but she said that if anybody wants it, she thought 2013, but don't quote her on that. But if you need the exact date, we can get it to you guys. I guess there's been some confusion with the freshman academy. Our previous superintendent called it the freshman academy. That's what we had the freshmen based on teams, and it was just called the freshman academy. But Mr. Elkington is trying to get out of that because it's all one school. So that's known as the East Building. Then you have the main building. So there's 3 groups of freshmen that are in the East Building, but there are also 2 groups that are in the main building, but they're right in a confined area. So I guess the positives of that is they're working out better because they've got 3 or 4 solid periods together right in the area, and that was the purpose of the freshmen, so that teachers can get to know the students and try to get, before they slide, get them up. We do have the success program that's in place this year, and we don't know what the numbers are currently, but that's the reason why we had to separate that, so we could make room for them in the East Building. And those are the kids that are just not successful, that are really struggling in a standard school. So they've got a program now with them to try to get them up. She said they went over summer school numbers. It looks like it went up from 60 to 80% that have earned their credits back. But there still are a few that they're still working on it right now in the fall semester. And she said that's about it. That was just like a synopsis. She was calling me on her cell phone. But if you need any numbers of timelines, and the teachers are trained, there was another big training for the risk for the teachers, and she's got all those numbers. If you need those, she'd be more than happy to email, she said. The 2 committees I sit on, Finance, and as Mr. Wagner said, We have looked at that money from the Obama presidency to save jobs. And what we've chosen to do as a finance committee is to hold on that money instead of using it this year. We're waiting for that cliff that everybody keeps talking about for the 11-12 budget. And we're hoping that we can use it towards that, so to avoid as many, hopefully none, layoffs this year. The state did not curtail us. We don't believe it, though. We don't have a lot of faith that that's not going to happen again. So we still, sorry, Mr. Wagner, but we don't have great faith that that's going to be. They say they're not curtailing, but we still don't have faith. So we're still kind of putting a hold on spending. We're really watching, but there's really not a lot that we can put on hold. But, you know, supplies and stuff like that, the accounts that we can, we're still kind of, Frank is really watching everything that goes out. And we have set up all the forums for budget for the towns, and Waterboro's is scheduled for November 11th at 6:30. I know it's a holiday. We were hoping that maybe we could get more people out because Waterboro was our lowest town last year. The lowest number of people showed up for it. Frank was joking at a meeting and said, let's just say we're going to close all the elementary schools and that'll get people out, because that's what we did with Shapley, and 200 people came to their meeting. Clearly a joke. That's not happening. But he's hoping for these meetings to set up now because we're getting ready to start the budget process. Our goals and objectives, we want to get the towns, what they're looking for, what they want, and try to work in with that.
What time is that?
6:30,
Where?
at the middle school. I do believe that's where it was set, it's the middle school. And the other committee I sit on is negotiations, and currently, right now, we have 3 contracts that we're going to be negotiating this year. We've already spoken to the administrators once, and I just got an email today that we're setting up with the teachers, and we are in arbitration with ed techs and secretaries. We're waiting for that to come back. And that's it?
Mary,
Yeah.
the PR
Yeah.
committee, I mean, what is again the problem? Why can't Waterboro broadcast committee meetings or the school board meetings? Why do we have to, why doesn't it work?
We had to take out because of the cost of televising our school board meetings, and only 2 towns receive it in the district. So we felt that that was a cost. We'd rather take that out than lose another teacher, because it was a big cost to do that.
The
I mean,
cost of the cameraman?
The cost of the cameraman and him doing because see, it's not like this area here. We had to hire somebody to come in, he had to go over the tapes, and then he made tapes and dispersed them to all of the schools, all the libraries, and it wasn't feasible when we found out that there were only 2 towns that could get that.
Okay. Now, has anything gone on with the recycling funds?
Oh, I meant to say that. The minute you started talking, I said recycling. We have the little buckets in place, and the PTC has offered to pay for the big buckets. And I guess we've worked with D&E Rubbish as far as changing buckets, which you had heard at that meeting, I think, and I guess that's going through. We have 3 standard-sized buckets, but D&E Rubbish has agreed to not charge us any more, but they're giving us a 10-ton, a 5-ton, and an 8-ton, I think it was, so we can recycle at Waterboro Elementary, because Mr. Woodson came and presented to Finance, and we're going to see if it works, to see if it saves any type of, but the cost was the buckets and everything. We do have some in place already, but the PTC has generously offered to pick up the thing, so it's not going to be any extra money to do this, because D&E Rubbish has agreed to not charge us extra.
Good, congratulations.
Yes, so we're hoping. That should be going through, I would say, in the next couple of weeks, because I think they're waiting for the things to be switched out. That's the last I heard.
Good,
But if anything else changes, I'll let you know.
thank you.
Yep.
Gordon?
Mary, I'd like to go back to the first item that Mr. Woodson brought up, and that's to the videotaping of the sessions. I know this has been kind of a
Sticky stuff.
thorn in everybody's side. You know, the townspeople think that the selectmen have the power to tell you to videotape it, and somehow, you know, we told you not to, but we've got, I think, that cleared up. One of the things that we did find out, though, when we were speaking with the cable franchise representative, was that they have offered to, if they were to get a CD, they've offered to rebroadcast that and enter into an agreement with MetroCast, which I think is the other carrier for some of those towns that do not have the direct linkage, to the Time Warner. And they've offered to do that, and for some reason, the school has declined, and I don't know if it falls back to the cameraman issue.
It falls back to the
But it
cost.
seems as though you got a simple camera you could set up that runs, just goes to the table. I don't think you have to have anything, pretty fancy. Or have you even looked into streaming video, on the computer?
We have tried that. Heather, as a matter of fact, is our computer guru, and she had brought her camera in once, but I'm not sure why. I can have her get in touch with you. I'm not sure why it didn't work, because she tried to do that, because she thought if we could just get it taped, then she could try to get it on the computer and have it on our website to see. But for some reason, she couldn't. I don't know if it's the conversion of her tape to our system. And she was working with our computer people, but I haven't heard anything
If
recent
there was a
about that.
camera down there that's CD-based, it would
Yeah, and I think that was her
capture on
problem. I
that.
don't think hers was CD-based or something, and they were supposed to be working with her. And again, I can have her get in touch with you, because she's the one that's working on it, because she suggested that herself, and she didn't mind doing it. But our problem is trying to get someone to get the camera there, to have someone working the camera and getting that on a CD, and you don't just have volunteers to do that. Nobody will do it just for free, unless you know somebody that does it as a hobby.
I don't know anybody offhand right now,
But I mean, if you could,
But if
because
there's
that's what we're
anybody out
looking
there
at.
listening to
Right. If anybody wants to do that, we even thought of maybe like a student doing it.
yeah.
But again, we would need some teacher to be the person that oversees that. We
Yeah.
can't just have the student there without, and that's been our problem all along. But I can look into it. Like I said, I can have Heather get in touch with you and tell her why it didn't work, because we were looking at that.
I think David, our IT guy back there.
I had to talk to her about why, and maybe see if I can help you figure out a way that you can kind of automate that, maybe, see if we can make her.
So just have her call the town office and...
Yeah, let's have her
give
get in touch with David.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I'll let her know.
That'd be great if we could work together and
Yeah,
find a
because we're
solution.
trying to do that, because we know that, and that's how we know that we get more to the elderly people too, is that was our big thing. But the whole, us taping it, it only was shown in 2 towns, and we didn't feel using district money would be right if only 2 towns are seeing that.
Right, and we presented that to the Time Warner
Right.
representative, who said that they had made an offer to the school that if it were on CD, they'd rebroadcast it and enter into an agreement with MetroCast to have them rebroadcast that
Yep.
on those areas, so.
So I'll have Heather, because like I said, she's a computer girl, she loves that.
That'd be great if we could
And I'll
make that
have, if
work.
we can get it to work, a lot of board members were very disappointed that that went away, but we had to make a choice between staff and that.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, new business, discuss vote Ossipee Lake Dam gate. It was discovered last year during an inspection that the gaskets at the town-owned dam at Ossipee Lake needed to be replaced. Sebago Tex did an inspection, and Nancy, where are we with, we had money appropriated at town meeting for that this year, and where are we with taking care of that?
Yeah, actually, the leak started in 2007, and we've had an inspection, I think we did in 2007 and 2009, and Owens did one recently. I was able to make contact with the company that was the builder of the gates, and I sent them a copy of the report, and they're going to be conducting an inspection the first week of November. The cost of the inspection and the report will be $850, and upon conclusion, they will provide a report and the cost. If it's just the seals that need to be replaced, the town can purchase the seals and install them, but the seals won't be guaranteed or warranted. But if WIPS Incorporated installs the seals and conducts any of the repairs, then the work will be guaranteed. So I did sign a purchase order, and he will be calling me the last week of October. They have a big project out in Las Vegas, and if there's any time within that last week of October, then he'll come up, but otherwise than that, it will be sometime the first week of November, because they really want to get the project done before the water gets too cold.
So we'll stick that back on the agenda on November 9th, with the second week in November, and get an update on where we are with that. Any other questions about the dam gate?
I can't imagine that the town can do this without having somebody that is certified. And I wouldn't think that we would have anybody on board that's certified to replace those seals, or even have the equipment,
Mike could do it.
the scuba gear. But I know that John offered to get down with one of those, the hand things with the silicone thing to go around it, but, and certainly we appreciate that, but I guess the point is that we probably ought to go with a reputable company that we have, it's going to back up the product. So if something does happen, that the town doesn't incur any liability, and we've got some accountability on, how it was done.
These were the original builders of the gates. Superior Concrete out of Auburn. Auburn did the actual dam, and Whips did the gates.
Okay.
And he said that after 14 years, it's probably time that they needed to be replaced.
So we got a good life out of them. Okay. Moving on, discuss vote hiring process for the town clerk. Town does have a position open for town clerk, accepting applications until October 29th. We do need to make sure that we move fairly quickly on this once the applications have all been accepted, and Nancy has put together what her recommendation is to handle this. We all had that in our packets this week. Nancy, you want to just go over what your thoughts were?
My thoughts were, we do have under the charter, the hiring panel is created. Actually, the panel will assist the selectmen in the interview and hiring process of all permanent department head positions. We did use the hiring panel previously, but the position is not a department head. And we did have a lot of people. It's unnerving to walk into a interview process and you got 13 people sitting around the table looking at you. My proposal is basically about what we did for when we did the town planner interview. We had a panel, and they did them in 2 separate rooms. One group asked questions, and that group asked questions, and then as soon as the interview was done, everybody got together and went over their notes. My suggestion on this would be a 7-member panel, 2 from the hiring panel, 2 selectmen, town administrator, and where this is going to have extensive contact with the public, 2 members from the public. And I would recommend that the members from the public not be affiliated with the town, like on committees and stuff like that. Just have John Q. Citizen, 2 John Q. Citizens, or 2
Jane Q.
J. Q.
What was the reasoning for 7?
Odd number.
But I mean, why not 5 or 3?
Oh, you could do 5. I just wrote 7 numbers there to try to get something. You could go to 5.
I think 5 can do as good a
My
job
vote
as
would
7.
be, the hiring panel really, and I understand that the people that we used before are typically on other committees and whatnot, and they've put their hand up and wanted to be part of it, so, but they kind of truly represent, the public, right? I mean, that's why they're on the hiring committee. They don't really have any other than they might participate in committees in and around the town. So I think you could grab a couple of folks off from that committee, a couple from the board, and the town administrator, and with 5, you probably can work. We know, I mean, the 6 of us at this table struggle sometimes right, reaching consensus, but, and I think what we did last time, we had 7, but we had 2 from the planning board, 2 from the board, and then 2 from the hiring committee, and you, right? Was it 7? Was it Nancy?
Well,
Nancy. So, I mean, that worked out fairly well, it was efficient, and I think the additional 2 was because the planning board ultimately shared in the decision-making process, right? I mean, that was a position that was gonna service them. So, I mean, I understand your recommendation, but I think you kinda get the public's input by grabbing 2 people off the hiring panel.
Do we have any active members on the hiring panel? I mean, we haven't used it in 2 years,
There's
but
really no, there was never, people got on the hiring panel, there was never a term, right? They were just put on the hiring panel,
Just
so
there.
it was like forever.
No, I think,
Like the Supreme Court.
I don't know if I have it. I think they had a,
Gordon,
I don't remember how that,
do you have any thoughts?
I kind of like the idea of 5. I'm used to, a 5-person, either oral board or hiring board. That seems to be a fairly consistent thing in law enforcement anyway. And my only suggestion that when I spoke with Nancy briefly about it, was that it might be good to have a town clerk sitting on that. But I think I sort of answered my own question in the fact that the town administrator was previously the town clerk here. So, that level of expertise was already present. And, could ask those questions accordingly. But absent that fact, I would have suggested, a town clerk from, somewhere else. But other than that, I'm good with it.
What happens who does the interview for a second interview? Do you have a second interview or just the one?
usually 2.
I think, what do we do with everyone? Right, we brought back 2 candidates, 3 candidates, and had the whole panel.
Yes, the second time the whole panel did.
Right.
Yeah, I think the 5 people, for one thing, you got to get everybody together. And when you have candidates, you don't want to wait a long time. You get candidates and you get some candidates you're pretty excited about, you want to go fast. So the faster you can get that panel together, make a recommendation, get them before the Board of Selectmen and hire them, the better.
So I'm just trying to lay this out in my mind. I kind of think, David, did you have any comments?
I think the fewer the better and quicker.
So I think 5 probably is the consensus of the board. So what would you do, split that 5 up into 2 groups? Do all 5 interview each candidate?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then you pull some people back for a second interview? And who conducts the second interview? The same panel?
Same panel.
Maybe Nancy can determine who's going to go before the 5 too, and she can screen the applicants and come up with the final candidates. And let's say if you have 10 applicants and she comes up with 3 for the 5 people to interview that she can feel comfortable with, that would be a fairly quick way to do it.
Do you have a lot of applications?
13 or 14.
I don't know that we're going to want to get into interviewing 13 or 14
No.
people, and we still have 2
No.
weeks to go.
And I'm trying to remember before how we did to at least, kind of pare it down to those that we were interested in. And I almost
I think we
thought
did a
that
scoring. We had a
I
scoring.
think the board kind of participated in that, right?
I don't remember that.
No, I think,
So, well, maybe it
Everybody did a
was, Cindy and I
score
were on a thing, maybe it was Cindy and I and you that kind of said, we're going to get down to 8 or something like that, and we did the interviews here on a Saturday, right?
So what if we did two selectmen, work with Nancy, to whittle the field down. Then do a 5-panel hiring board, or, yeah, 5-panel, or 5-member panel. And then those 5 members pick the top 3 candidates. And what if the second interview was with the Board of Selectmen?
And ultimately, you can do that. Gets it down to, a couple of candidates, right?
Get it down to the top 3 and
That
then
would be
select.
I wouldn't tie a number to it because,
Right.
because what you might have is
Yeah.
you might have 3 people that you feel real good about, and you'd be happy with any one of the 3 and bring them before the board, or you might be down to 2. I think it's always better to bring more than 1.
Oh, yeah.
But if there's a person, if there's people that you think, geez, this person's not going to cut it, and you don't want to take a chance that the board's going to hire them.
I disagree with having the whole board do the second interview from the simple fact that then it becomes a public interview. Because it's, when we're all together, it's a public meeting.
Wouldn't that be executive session, Nancy?
I think I agree with Gordon on that, because your first round of interviews, you will whittle it down. The second round of interviews, you may get a different, the ones who interviewed the first time may get a different outlook on the second time around. Whereas they only do it once, and then it goes to the Board of Selectmen, then you could be,
I think you're right. I mean, going back to how we did this before, I mean, it worked very well. There was, it was down selected, the board met, and I think you get away from the whole issue of, is it a public hiring or is it a private, ultimately, I think you get to a point where nobody gets hired unless the whole board approves it. And that can be done at a point where you introductions and questions and the final analysis, but.
Yeah, because the board does do the appointment.
Right.
So a 5-member panel, 2 selectmen work with Nancy, reduce the applications down. First interview with the 5-member panel, they pick the top candidates, do a second interview, same 5-member panel, and then the recommendation to the board on who to hire. Does that sound like the correct process? So if we need 2 selectmen to serve on that, what's the interest?
I'd be willing to.
I would too. Is there anybody else, or?
If no one else will, I'm happy to.
Dennis?
Yeah, I guess I'd feel the same way. If we need somebody, then I'd jump in. If not, if you 2 want to do it,
Yeah.
good with that.
All right, so I would entertain a motion. Wrap that all up then.
All right, I'll move that the hiring panel consists of 2 members of the once established hiring panel, two selectmen, Amy Jo and Gordon, and Nancy, the town administrator. To what you said, review, cull it down to who will get interviews. The 5-person panel interviews them, gets it down to a number of top candidates, and then from there, that same panel makes a recommendation of who to hire.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, is that all set, Nance? Okay. Discuss, vote on abatements. We have 3 abatements in our packets this week.